win every night. Tone and Markus got the scoop ready to ignite. From the lanes of South Street to the Broad Street lights. Dashing like a running back, hitting every play. 9 guys in the zone, never led astray. Talking touchdowns, talking game day. Huddle around the mic, hear what they gotta say. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Markus always standing by. Bringing the heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Markus always standing by. Bringing the heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry.
What up, my man Tone? We are back. Back from the little hiatus.
Yes, sir.
It's like we cross the street on different sides, facing different directions, keep missing each other.
Hey, listen, man, it don't make a difference, man. As long as we get the content out there, the people don't care as long as they get it. You feel me? So you already know what it is with us, man. This is your Eagles Offseason Show featuring Coach Markus from Pro Fan Talk. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II from Chalk It Up Sports. Where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge us to the game. Y'all know the vibes. Y'all know the energy. Make sure y'all smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to both channels, not just one, but two. Yes, both of them. Chalk It Up Sports and Pro Fan Talk. Go subscribe, man. Go donate. Go invest. Everything you see as it pertains to Pro Fan Talk. Y'all see the set. Y'all see the graphics. Y'all see the office. Y'all see the home studio we got here at Chalk It Up Sports. It doesn't happen without you guys invested in us. Be it the like button, be it the subscribe button, be it your super chats and your super stickers. You guys are important to the lifeblood of this content we pump out. So exercise your right as a consumer and put your money where your mouth is. Put your time where your mouth is. You feel me?
You already know.
For sure. We got some things to talk about, though.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. I saw your the tag, the caption for the for today's stream.
Yeah.
How Jalen Hurts is a team first guy.
Man, I saw that and I said, man, you don't see that these days, man. You don't see people coming off that bag like that.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, it's so I assume you want to start from the Nicole Lynn angle, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start there then. I mean, Nicole Lynn,
that's where it started for me. And I was like, you know what? I'm sure that there's probably been other people that have done that, but I can't remember another athlete, let alone somebody in Philadelphia, that high profile. That information about that came out publicly. Because guess you could probably say Devontae Smith, because he was in a similar situation where he said, like, how much money do I need? You know what I mean? So, but that's a very interesting perspective from Devontae. Especially in this culture with as young as he is. I did not expect that from him, but it was a refreshing take. Me being an older person and seeing somebody that young with that much money who could have easily gotten more and said, I got enough. I'm good.
Yeah.
What I got right now, I'll never be able to spend it. You know what I mean? So that was kind of refreshing. And then you double down on what Jalen Hurts did at quarterback. And somebody finally gets the message like, hey, I can't do this on my own. So I got to make sure family is good, because the family is the one that's holding me up. Because if they don't function, I don't function, and vice versa. And that's something that it kind of gets lost in the sauce these days, just with the climate of the era that we are in. Everything is me, or like the way that it is these days. And that seems to be the overall opinion of the day, is like, I gotta get the clicks, I gotta get the likes, I gotta get the attention. And everybody's getting that. They just not getting no championships.
Yeah, it's funny because, and this is all rooted in Nicole Lynn's recently, like, I don't want to say recently posted, because it was posted a few months ago, but it's something that recently went viral. I guess somebody came across it, and it's been going viral as of late, and amongst Eagles Twitter and so on and so forth. But Nicole Lynn, very high profile sports agent. She's the president of the NFL division for Clutch Sports. She's also the agent for Jalen Hurts. I believe she also represents Quinnen Williams. She represents Jahad Campbell. She represents.
I didn't know she had high.
Yeah. I think she also represents Jahad Campbell as well.
She got a stable of them.
She represents some high quality guys in this league, and she's gotten a lot of guys paid. But Jalen Hurts in particular, his situation is interesting because his contract came up when she was talking with, I don't want to mess up my brother's name, but she was sitting down with attorney and former NFL agent and player Dominique Price. I believe it looked like some sort of masterclass, and they were breaking down the nature of NFL contracts, and Jalen Hurts' contract came up, and she essentially got into pretty decent detail regarding their communication throughout the process.
Right.
And she said that he wasn't the slightest bit interested in how things were going. He didn't want to be made privy about nothing until
it was done.
It was time to sign something. And she said she's not used to that. She says normally guys want to know every step of the process, what's going on. She said that kind of threw me off a little bit. She said, but Jalen is such a selfless guy. One thing that stood out, the one thing that he kept reiterating, or that he reiterated once the deal was done, because she came to him and said, I just made you the highest paid player in NFL history. And he's like, well, I ain't asked you to do all that, but and that kind of took her back a little bit. But she said what stood out about the conversations that Jalen, before he signed anything, before he agreed to anything, he wanted to know how his contract would impact the players around him, more specifically the cap space and what the Eagles were able to do.
Yeah.
That was his main concern about keeping guys in the building, keeping preparing the right guys, building the team.
He want to know how the sausage is made.
Right. And that's such a refreshing perspective, because there's some guys that don't really there's a lot of guys in the league. I'm sure the majority of you guys in the league have the perspective of, hey, it's my job to play.
Right.
It's the front office job to figure out how to make the money work.
Right.
Right. And they're not all the way wrong. Right. They're not. But at the same token, if you have a priority, if your priority is not only placed on making sure you get your coin, but also is your priority placed on winning, then I believe it's important for you to understand the long-term ramifications of the contract you sign. Yes, you got chores, but what does that do for the long-term ability of the teams? What does that mean for the team's long-term ability to sustain winning in a winning culture?
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, because here's another angle, right? You have quarterbacks in this league, and that's not to say they're selfish, but there are quarterbacks in this league that are so confident in themselves that they feel like regardless of what's around them, they can win and still get their money. And it's not impossible, but there's some guys that when they take the money, they ignore the sacrifices teams have to make to make sure to make sure that contract is possible. And again, I'm not pointing to anybody. I'm not pointing to anybody specific, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these guys are so confident they're comfortable with the team cutting corners in certain areas because they're confident in their ability. That's not to say Jalen Hurts isn't confident in his ability, but he also believes that, hey, I know what it takes to win. And in order for me to win, I got to make sacrifices. I got to make sure my contract is constructed in a way that makes sure we can keep this thing together, because I know it takes a village to win Super Bowls. I know it takes a strong team to win the big one.
And that's it in a nutshell. You know what it takes. If I'm gonna ask you to cook for me, you say, okay, I need these ingredients, period. And if I want to eat, it is my job to get those groceries.
Yeah, and being self-aware.
Yeah, and to the point about the quarterbacks. Now, the quarterbacks to me is a little bit odd, because you could have a very talented quarterback that can't win jack and can still get a huge bag because he can throw the ball a country mile because he can do some things on the field aside from winning. There's a lot of quarterbacks we can run down a list that were very talented but never won. First or second round in the playoffs every couple years or once or twice, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Matt Ryan and what he did in that Super Bowl, jumped out of a 28-3 lead, and then Tom Brady did what Tom Brady does, and he has never been the same since.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. You get that big of a lead, and that's unacceptable. I mean, look, you can say, hey, defense did their job holding them to that many points in the first half. Offense, all they gotta do is just keep kicking field goals, right? You can make an argument, say, hey, offense did their job getting that lead. Defense, all you gotta do is keep them below 28. Like, it's
right.
But for me, I can't help but to say that, hey, in defense, you can only. I'm of the mindset you can only hold a team down for so long in a football game.
Right.
Defensively, that I'm of the mindset that defense can only hold a team down for so long. The offense is going to have to keep scoring or just keep the pressure on. Because it just happens. Like, I mean, defenses leak oil after a while. Teams catch up for some reason. Teams catch on to what you're doing, and now teams starting to, move the ball. They're starting to put
ebbs and flow of games and
right. So offense, at least you can do is keep kicking field goals. That's what the Eagles did. That's how the Eagles won, basically.
Right.
In the second half, I mean, they had big moments, big plays, but they also just kept piling on, just making it more difficult for them to catch up, even if it's 3 points there, a touchdown there. Like, they just kept making sure they kept piling on. So yeah, Matt Ryan and those guys, you can't give us you can't miss an opportunity like that. And the Jalen Hurts, he made it very clear that if I ever got the opportunity to play this game again, I'm not leaving empty-handed. And the only reason the Eagles get to that place is because Jalen Hurts had the presence of mind that when he got there in 2022 and he got paid in 2023, he said, if I want to get back, we got to go back like this.
Yeah.
Because I know what's across the aisle from me. I know I gotta kill that demon. A la the Chiefs. I know I gotta slay that dragon. And you gotta make sure you cross your T's and dot your I's with that dragon. You gotta make sure you come correct.
Gotta come correct.
And
other than Patrick Mahomes, Brady's out. Other than Patrick Mahomes, I guess Aaron Rodgers is still playing.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. Who else has been to multiple Super Bowls?
None.
It's just those two? Has A-Rod been to two? He's won one.
Aaron Rodgers has only been to one Super Bowl.
He's only been to one. Okay.
And he won it. There's only there's three active quarterbacks right now that have been to more than one Super Bowl. That's Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson.
Thank you. Russell Wilson.
As far as active quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks, the guys that have been to multiple, played in multiple as a starting quarterback, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's only Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Russell Wilson.
Right. I think you're right. Now take that back to the money you just told me we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that dude down in Atlanta is making more money than anybody.
He's not even the starter anymore.
Exactly. And I'm like, bro, what mind trick, what kind of magic were you studying down in Vegas to convince somebody to give you that type of contract?
When first of all,
they
signed him to all that money coming off of a torn ACL.
Hey, bruh, if it was anybody else, all of those red flags would pop up.
That doesn't.
I can't hate him for signing the contract because if they put that in front of my face, I would sign it too.
I'm gonna sign it too. Well,
why did it even get to that?
Why do you think he don't mind just going to the bench? If you notice, Kirk Cousins ain't made a sound.
Ain't made a peep.
Ain't made a sound.
His check cleared. He good.
They guaranteed him over $100 million.
But I want to know if he must be one of them dudes, that come into camp and they be reading people's minds and tell you what your nickname was when you was 3 years old. Like, he one of them dudes, man.
Yeah, torn Achilles, excuse me. He tore his Achilles.
I don't know what it is that makes You put anybody else in that situation and they don't get that money. For good reason. So what did he do? What did he do that would convince the Blake family to sign off on a check like that?
I couldn't.
Knowing they was going to draft another quarterback.
See, they confused me when they drafted what's the kid's name? Jeez. The quarterback Atlanta's, what's the name? Why am I forgetting his brother's name?
You're on the blank too.
But regardless, though, Michael Penix.
Michael Penix. Thank you, chat.
Thank you, Sweet Chin Music. Like Michael Penix, when they drafted him, I was like, oh, they don't have a plan. When they drafted him, I was like, oh, they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan. They're just throwing darts they're just throwing assets at the wall, hoping it stick. So look, that's why you can't take what Jalen Hurts has provided the Eagles for granted. Because he's provided stability at the position for 4 straight years. And that's something the Philadelphia Eagles haven't really had since the McNabb era. Let's be honest about this.
We didn't even get that with Foles.
We didn't get that with Foles. We really didn't get it with Wentz because Wentz would miss games. He wouldn't start the season. Then he'll
injury prone.
Same
thing with Foles.
Yeah. So Jalen Hurts has been the most constant thing over the past 4 years, and he's giving you 4 playoff berths, 2 NFC championship victories, a Super Bowl win. Like, he has a 6-3 playoff record. Has a career win percentage, I believe, of over 60%, over 70%, something like that. Like 70%, whatever it may be, 60 to 70%, something like that. You can nitpick his game all you want. Sure, go ahead, have fun. Nitpick.
Go ahead, man.
Have fun.
Did you hear him talking about that on the radio today?
But the results are what they are, and
yes.
They are what they are. And I think people have a hard time giving him credit for the results. They have a hard time doing it.
They do.
When in reality, they wouldn't have a hard time giving credit to anybody else.
It's always an excuse. It's always an excuse.
That's why I loved what ESP did today.
Yep. I was just about to go there.
And he isn't my favorite person on the airwaves. He isn't.
Nah, but he drops facts.
But one thing I say when it comes to Jalen Hurts, he just calls it like how it is. You can't prioritize the regular season with one guy and devalue the playoffs with him. And then with Jalen Hurts, you can't devalue his playoffs and all of a sudden put all this stake on his regular season.
Right.
Like you can't, like, when we try to criticize Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, when those guys when we try to criticize those guys, you know what they say? They say, what do you mean? There's 3 MVPs in between those guys. There's a Super Bowl berth in between those guys. There's all pros and Pro Bowls, and you see how much they win. You see how electric they are in the regular season. And then you bring up the playoffs. You say, well, it wasn't a fault. It wasn't a fault. I mean, look they ball out in the regular season. It wasn't a fault in the playoffs.
It's everything but what matters.
Okay, all right. Okay.
It's everything but what matters.
You want to put all this stake on the regular season. Okay. All right.
And then when it's us, they want to move the goalposts.
Move the goalposts.
And then now, like they were talking today, is they want to put all of the credit on Saquon. So
as if Hurts didn't make it to a Super Bowl before he got there.
Exactly. And then so if Jalen Hurts would have had a bad day throwing the ball, and they still would have held Saquon Barkley under 50 yards rushing or whatever it was.
Who you blaming?
Whose fault is that?
You're gonna blame Jalen, right?
Exactly.
But we giving Saquon all the credit when things go well.
Exactly.
So would you have blamed Saquon if the Eagles lost the Super Bowl and he didn't get off?
They moved the goalposts. No, they would not have.
You get what I'm saying? Like it's in that Super Bowl. And my man LB said this, and I agree with 100%. In that Super Bowl, everything wasn't going according to the Chiefs' plan defensively. Technically.
Yes.
Technically.
Absolutely.
They forced they shut down Saquon. They forced the Eagles into a lot of second and third and long situations. They forced Jalen Hurts to beat him.
They played as expected. Tone, I went back and watched. We talked about that leading up to the Super Bowl. We talked about that. About y'all can go ahead and bring an extra man, drop that safety down in the box to limit that run game. And that's exactly what they did. And what did I say?
And it worked.
Y'all want to leave A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on the corners on islands? One-on-one? Y'all go ahead and do that. You take that risk. That's exactly what they did. I don't know what they were seeing in film session.
But Marcus, it's only A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Like Jalen Hurts not throwing the ball. A.J. Brown and Devontae and Goddard, they're throwing the ball, and Dotson, they're throwing the ball to themselves.
Correct.
They're throwing the ball to themselves. You know, like Jalen Hurts is a non-factor.
Correct.
He had nothing to do with the way that game went. Nothing to do with it.
And they were convinced. They were convinced that Jalen was not going to throw the ball the way he did.
They were confident. They were convinced. They were convicted. They were so adamant that Jalen Hurts would be the squeaky wheel. And Jalen Hurts reserved his best football for the two most important games of the season. I just think it's funny how we devalue all of a sudden NFC Championship and Super Bowl performances when it's him. But when we talk about a lot of these guys' legacies and what matters most, we talk about what they did in the playoffs, who they beat to get there. Jalen Hurts beat Jordan Love. He beat Matthew Stafford. He beat Jaden Daniels. He beat Patrick Mahomes. Flat out. Now, a lot of people wanted to discredit his first run where he beat Daniel Jones, he beat Brock Purdy, then lost to Mahomes. People discredit him for that.
Right.
So he comes back. He outplays Jordan Love. He outplays Matthew Stafford. Call it how you want to call it. He beat him.
In the snow.
In the snow. He outplayed Jaden Daniels and he outplayed Patrick Mahomes. It's the results. It's the fact of the matter. Nitpick his game all you want. I know who that brother is when it matters most.
And now we got history. That's the beautiful thing. Now we got history. Now we got track record. Now we can look back and say, hey, look at what we did against this team all 6 times we played them. Or all, you can go back and look at the stats and say, okay, what was his passer rating against y'all the whole season? Y'all, we saw what we knew was going to happen. But for whatever reason, everybody couldn't come off that, well, Patrick Mahomes ain't losing. They gonna three-peat. They wanted Patrick Mahomes to make history so bad. And it's like, you can't see the forest for the trees. It's sitting. If it was any other situation, or if the situation was flipped, and the Chiefs defense was playing like we were, but that wasn't the case. They knew Caliendo was a leak on that offensive line. They knew Tooney wasn't playing well because he was out of position. They knew all of that stuff. They knew their defense was suspect. The secondary couldn't hang with Devontae, but they just ignored everybody because they assumed that Patrick Mahomes was just going to somehow make magic happen. Somehow. And they fucked around and found out.
Simple as that. I respect Jalen Hurts highly because no matter what, his perspective on the game is very simple.
Very down to earth.
I'm not going to measure myself based off of stats or what other people value. Last time I checked, this thing was about winning, like winning the big game. He says, I'm going to value myself based off of championships, not based off of these stats. These stats don't going to matter when I retire. They not. People going to talk about what did he do in his career? What accolades did he bring home? Who was he in the big games? That's what Dan Marino is one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen play this game. It's certain rooms. I'm sorry, he can't go into the same rooms as Steve Young. Would you?
No.
Would the football community would the majority of the football community say Dan Marino is a better talent than Steve Young? I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would.
Best pure passer ever, all of that type of stuff.
But there's rooms that Steve Young can go into that Dan Marino can't.
Facts.
Joe Montana, he was drafted what, in the 3rd round, 4th round, something like that.
Yep.
Marino was drafted when? 1st round?
Yeah, he was a 2nd pick, I think, or something like that.
Were they in the same draft class?
Marino and Joe?
Montana.
Joe came out. I don't think so.
Let me see if I can find that.
I could be wrong. You making me go back too far on that one.
So Dan Marino was drafted in 1983 draft. That's the John Elway draft. John Elway.
Yeah. I want to say Montana came out in 78.
Dan Marino was drafted 1st round, 27th overall. Okay. That's the John Elway draft.
Yeah. When was Montana?
Joe Montana. Let's see. 1979. Okay. So a 4-year difference. Joe Montana, 4 years his senior. But it's rooms. Joe Montana, 3rd round pick. Marino, 1st round pick. It's rooms Montana can go into that Dan Marino can't. Them stats don't get you into them rooms. It don't. Being legendary and legendary moments get you in them rooms. You feel me? So I appreciate Jalen Hurts' perspective, and I think it's so dope. Like, for example, even the to take it a step further, Dallas Goedert revealing that Jalen Hurts was in contact with him throughout. He reached out to him throughout that contract dispute he had with the Eagles, and he was and he said like it wasn't like a recruiting pitch. He was just letting him know that he's there for me throughout this process. He's letting me know that, hey, whatever, like you belong here. Yeah. But like again, Dallas Goedert, he said like the conversation wasn't like some kind of recruiting thing. It felt like somebody who truly just was checking in on me, was sincere, didn't want nothing from me, just wanted to show me that I was valued. I was valuable to his success. How can you look at Jalen Hurts as a guy and not root for the guy? I've never seen a Super Bowl champion being nitpicked so much in the same city that he won it for. You know what? He get more. His game is. You tell me, is his game? He sounds at times more criticized than McNabb was.
I agree, but I think it's the overwhelming self sense to be right when you've seen it for yourself. But when everybody talks about this particular situation, everybody wants to be right because everybody wants to give you the secret sauce or the secret recipe to how this thing is done. And it's like everybody's still falling back on them same tropes that you grew up with. Mm-hmm. You got to be 6'3", 6'4". You got to have the rocket arm. You got to do all of these. You got to have all these measurables. And the truth of the matter is, if Joe Montana came out today with his measurables, he wouldn't even be drafted. He was small. He didn't have a great arm. His thing was he wanted Notre Dame. And back then, Notre Dame was everything in football. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, that's when you look at Joe Montana, when you look at Steve Young, when you look at those guys in the 80s and Bradshaw, and Bradshaw was not a good quarterback. Some people argue that Bradshaw shouldn't even be in the Hall. But he was the quarterback of a team that won 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah, he won a lot. He won.
You can criticize. Why he's in the Hall.
You can criticize him all you want. He won.
He won.
He only has one. Let me make sure I get this right here. He only has 1 All-Pro, 3 Pro Bowls. Now he does have an MVP though. He has an MVP in '78. He's a 4-time Super Bowl champion, a 2-time Super Bowl MVP. 1978 Burt Bell Award winner. He's a Hall of Fame all 1970s team. Like, when you look at his numbers, you like, huh? Is there like, but different era, of course.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
His career,
same thing with Aikman. Absolutely. Same thing with Aikman. But Aikman was the head of a team that was just, as much as you hate the Cowboys, man, the Cowboys was the buzzsaw in the 90s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
The 70s belonged to the Steelers. The 80s belonged to the 49ers. The 90s belonged to the Cowboys. And the 2000s belonged to who? The Patriots?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, They got it done. And back then, winning mattered because you didn't have all of this promotion. You didn't have all of the availability of the networks and everything we go through now when Prime and CBS and ABC and ESPN and Disney. And we didn't have all of that. You had limited options and everybody watched those options.
Yeah. Yeah. It like another thing that's interesting about the whole situation with Jalen Hurts is all of a sudden rings or ring culture is being called into question.
Yeah, when did this?
All of a sudden, ring culture is being questioned now. All of a sudden, not just in the NFL, but in the NBA. All of a sudden, ring culture is being questioned now. Now we've been looking at the game all wrong.
Yeah, we've been wrong all this time. I remember this. Back when I was playing, every now and then the Eagles will slip up and beat the Cowboys. And the one thing that everybody would throw up in your face, but how many rings you got? That was always the end all be all, and it would piss Eagles fans off because there was no rebuttal for that. None. Wasn't nobody counting our championships before the Super Bowl era. Nobody was counting those. So in the Super Bowl era, the TV era, everybody's looking for those chips. And that was the one thing that people would say, and it would just piss everybody off. And you couldn't say nothing because at the end of the day, if you knew football, it's about winning championships. And now that we finally here, to your point, we got so many people in this city on the radio, on content, mad or with excuses for why Jalen is not on the top list. And that's the other part about it. If somebody don't put him on the list, and I'm like, bro, like you ain't never gonna please everybody.
But here's the thing. I try to take these lists with a grain of salt, and I really don't pay them no mind for the most part. But some of them are so obviously triggering.
Correct.
That it's not even like you're not even hiding your hand anymore. You're desperate for engagement.
Correct.
It's not even apprehension about it anymore. Like, at a certain moment you be like, okay, are they making a compelling enough argument, or like, is it clickbait, or is it just a differencing of opinion? Like, to not include the quarterback, the franchise quarterback, the Pro Bowl quarterback, the All-Pro quarterback, the Super Bowl winning quarterback, the Super Bowl MVP quarterback of the number one organization in a top 5 market, to not include the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles on the top 10 Philadelphia athletes list is completely malpractice, and you deserve to be called into the principal's office. Because there's no amount of engagement that you can generate that justifies that level of idiocy. If you would have had him 9 or 8, you probably could have got away with it a little bit. At least he on the list. But to say, and I'm calling out WIP, Joe DeCamera, and those guys like Joe Gigolo, whatever his name is, Gigolo, like all those guys, like to completely be dismissive and be, quite frankly, disrespectful.
Downright disrespectful.
To the franchise quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles, the number one team in this city, the only team in this city that really, the only that really fuels the lifeblood. Like, this team feeds off of the Philadelphia Eagles. Feeds. The Phillies are second, but it's not a close second, in my opinion. Like,
I agree with that.
The football is king in Philadelphia. The NFL's like the Eagles are king in Philadelphia. And to say the franchise quarterback Jalen Hurts is not a top 10 athlete in the city, when Jalen Hurts has been featured on a cover of Essence, he's an ambassador for the Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. He's the ambassador for the flag football event that's been added to the Olympics. This brother has been featured on the cover of Sports Illustrated. the number one Jordan Brand one of the top rated Jordan Brand athletes right now. Like he's been featured on Time 100's most influential people. You're telling me this guy is not the number one athlete in Philadelphia? Jalen Hurts, top 3 in jersey sales with Saquon Barkley and Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Top 3 in NFL league-wide. Top 3 in jersey sales.
League-wide.
Super Bowl champion. Super Bowl MVP. Won a Super Bowl in one of the hardest cities to win in because of how challenging the fan base is, how challenging the market and the reporting is.
And the only reason he ain't got 2 is because of bad punt coverage.
Huh?
Come on, man.
He's not a top 10 Philly athlete. What are you doing?
What's wrong with you? That's a loser's mentality.
Like it's irresponsible. It's irresponsible, and you can't expect people to look at your platform as an authority on Philly sports when you're doing things that blatant for engagement.
Right.
That's why I loved what Bill Colarulo said today on 97.5 for that. I love.
You know what? I started watching that before we came on the air. I didn't get a chance to finish it. What did he say? I know what he's talking about.
He basically was saying that we can't be this desperate for engagement. We got to stop disrespecting Jalen Hurts just for engagement.
Right.
We got to stop doing that. And I love what ESP did today. He said, listen, I'm not ignoring Jalen Hurts had struggles in the regular season. What I have a problem with is what you're prioritizing.
Right.
That's my problem. Since when did we prioritize regular season performances and accolades over playoff performances and accolades? Since when did that become the language?
Never.
Since when did that become the culture we in? When the regular season matters more than playoffs. When regular season performances matter more than NFC Championship and Super Bowl performances. Since when did that become the way we gauge legends and legacy? Since when? Well, because Jalen Hurts is the guy doing it. Come on, man.
They moving the goalposts. They always want to talk about it, but when we are about it, now you want to change up. Now it doesn't matter. Now he doesn't throw the ball enough. Now we still got to work on. There was problems in the locker room. It was, man, y'all just.
Now it's all Saquon. He wouldn't have got there without Saquon. He got to a Super Bowl without Saquon.
Shut up. Saquon didn't make it to the Super Bowl without him either. So that
without Jalen Hurts. Saquon never sniffed the NFC Championship without this Eagles team. Like, what
never sniffed it. Barely sniffed the playoffs.
Like, come on, man. What are we doing? What are we doing
here? He said that himself. He ain't used to being in the playoffs. So you gotta pump your brakes. Like, you want to be right so bad that you want to throw out any kind of accountability you have for some of the takes that you have, spit out there. And then all Jalen Hurts has done is win. It may not have been pretty. He may not have thrown for the 4,000 yards that everybody wants to see. But what would you rather have? Would you rather have the statistical anomaly that all-world quarterback that's throwing the ball all over the field, or do you want somebody that's going to win the Super Bowl? Do you want the ring? Look at all of that. Look at all of the stuff that they gave Trevor Lawrence. They just knew Trevor Lawrence was going to be a much better product than Jalen Hurts. You couldn't tell him nothing. And now he's struggling, and he in his third year? They don't understand how this thing gets done, but you want to align yourself with all of these other knuckleheads on ESPN and on TV that think they know everything, and they don't. You in the city that you see every day. You study these guys every day. And you're going to follow suit to these idiots on ESPN that get shoveled notes in front of their faces, but nobody ever watches the games.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you going to believe? Okay.
You know what I think it is too? Like the Jalen Hurts angle and why he gets criticized sometimes, especially in the city, in particular with WRP, because the Fanatic don't do him like that. The Fanatic is actually very much more respectful to Jalen Hurts.
Right.
I think it's a combination of things. I think some of those guys on not all, because there's some people in WRP that I have relationships with that I love. My man Rob Ellis, shout out to him. It's my guy. I love him.
Big shout out, Robbie.
Yeah, it's my guy. I love Rob Ellis. But there's certain guys, I believe, on that platform that take advantage of the fact that their company has a partnership with the Eagles as their flagship station. I think some guys take advantage of that because they know that relationship is signed, sealed, and delivered.
Right.
And they abuse that. That's what I think. And I think some guys, because Jalen Hurts hasn't given them the time of day with a conversation or interview. I know he spoke with John Ritchie and he spoke with he came on 9 months ago, August 29th to be specific. He spoke with John Ritchie and I can't remember the other guy that he's on there with, but I think he was filling in for Joe DeCamera. Jalen Hurts doesn't expose his energy to everybody.
No, he does not. He is very reserved, very quiet.
And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those guys got curved by him.
Yeah, they get miffed a little bit because he's very strategic in
about who he speaks to. About who he speaks to. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those guys are a little butthurt that he never gave them the time of day, whatever it may be. Who knows?
Have you ever heard Jalen on the radio? Has Jalen ever come on WIP or 97.5?
I'm literally looking at it right now. Once. It was 9 months ago, August 29th, 2024. He was there not there, but he was on the phone discussing Jason Kelce's departure. Yeah. You know, it was literally prior to this previous season.
Right.
You know, it was August 29th. That was the only time he's ever been on there. Only time. Because I was really about to say, yeah, he's never it's probably why they probably don't like him over there because he never came on. But he came on once. But the guys that the guys that criticized him, he wasn't speaking to them. He was speaking to people who actually show him a level of respect.
And common sense.
You know, so again, man, we're in a time where all of a sudden rings are being questioned, or the playoff success is losing its relevance because Jalen Hurts is the victor. He's the one who's taking advantage of the spoils.
Yeah.
And he did something that they claimed couldn't be done. A dual threat quarterback winning the Super Bowl, like a legit dual threat quarterback, like a real one. And Jalen Hurts is a dual threat quarterback.
And he broke their back. Broke their back with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I feel bad because if Cam had a little bit more hubris, man.
Mm-hmm.
If he had just a little bit more,
less hubris
over less hubris. If he could have controlled his ego just a little bit more, Cam would have went back. But Cam talked too damn much, and it hurt him. Yeah. And then that whole thing about what he, I remember seeing that after he lost that, man, and it all went downhill from there. Because he gave that stuff. He was a sore loser. He don't like losing. And who the hell likes losing? Nobody likes losing.
Yeah.
But you still got to be professional how you go about your business.
Absolutely.
And what he did after that game, that stuck with people, and didn't nobody want to rock with him no more. And he never got back to that point.
Yeah, he lost a lot of public praise. He lost a lot of that after that Super Bowl against the Broncos. But I want to read off some things because another guy I think is very, very honest about Jalen Hurts is Jeff Kerr. He just focuses on the results. Jeff Kerr, he's a stat guy, so he's going to bring them all up. He has right here. He says Jalen Hurts is on a Hall of Fame trajectory, and he gave a list of data to support his claim. He has here, when it comes to Jalen Hurts, a 69% win percentage, which is seventh all time. Only player with 10 plus passing touchdowns and 10 plus rushing TDs in the postseason in NFL history. 4 straight seasons with 10 plus rushing TDs, which is the longest streak by a quarterback in history and the first to do it. 1 of 5 quarterbacks with multiple Super Bowl starts before turning 27. 1 of 4 quarterbacks to lose their Super Bowl debuts and later go on and win the Super Bowl, which is something that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. When you lose, you don't go back and win it. It's history has shown it doesn't happen. Jalen Hurts debunked that. He's the 4th guy to do that ever. And we've been watching a lot of Super Bowls. Top two rushing yard performances by a quarterback in Super Bowl history. Most total touchdowns in the first 2 Super Bowl starts with 7. Second quarterback to put up 35 plus team points in multiple Super Bowls. He did that next to Joe Montana. The second Super Bowl to have a 70% completion rate and 3+ touchdowns in multiple Super Bowls. Only other person to do that is Tom Brady. And a Super Bowl MVP at 26, the 7th youngest. And he says there's a lot more he can get into, but he ain't got the time. So, like, it's Jalen Hurts has been nothing but a bright spot for Philadelphia.
Spectacular. Nothing short of spectacular.
When you think about the macro and the results, he's been a bright spot. He's won 30% of his games, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 win, 2 NFC Championship wins.
Yeah.
63 in the playoffs.
With the exception of his rookie year, and then in 2023, after that debacle with just the stuff was going wrong in the locker room, to be able to, I don't think people appreciate how bad 2023 was at the end, and to go from that to hoisting the Lombardi Trophy. Like, I don't think people understand how supremely difficult.
You couldn't have wrote it any better. You couldn't have wrote it any better. You come off a Super Bowl loss. You lose that. You lose going down to the wire.
Yeah.
A lot of people felt like you should have won that game, but you lost it nonetheless. You go through an off season with people questioning, can you get back? Was it a fluke? You start the next season 10-1, but you're winning by the skin of your teeth. People are wondering when the bottom is going to fall out. The bottom eventually falls out. You guys finished the season 11-6. You went 1-5 in your last 6 games. Collapse. The complete definition of a collapse. You look up the word collapse in the dictionary, that season pops up.
Right.
People are documenting, chronicling the shaky relationship between you and your head coach. People are documenting that this team, were they fool's gold? Were they a one-hit wonder in 2022? Can Jalen Hurts return to form? Right? Can they overcome another coaching change? This defense, worst defense in football. People had no expectations about this defense coming into the season. None. And they start the season 2-2. They go back to the drawing board. They figure out how they want to win football games. They ride that to the wheels fall off, dominate, make it to the Super Bowl, win it. He's Super Bowl MVP. This story couldn't have been written any better. How can you go against God like this? Like, how can you go against something that's so? It's why we love the game. It's why we love sports movies.
Everybody want something to complain about. That's what it comes down. Everybody wants something to complain about.
This is how legacies are defined.
Correct.
This is why we tune in.
We sit here talking about running back.
It's theater. It's theater.
We are sitting here talking about running back. We got a legitimate opportunity. We have the best young defensive player in the league. Best. And we just drafted the next one. And we just signed the other one. And we just got another one. And it keeps going on and on and on. And we got all of that on defense. Defense still wins championships, but we reloaded on offense.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have to get too many new weapons. All you had to do was take that gun apart, clean your pieces, put it back together, and it's going to fire just the same.
I agree, man. You know, this is
we've got it all in the palm of our hands. The only thing, and we talked about this before, the only thing I'm remotely concerned about, and not that I'm really concerned, but I just want to see it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see what Kevin Patullo is going to do, calling the plays, and how that's going to work.
I've been feeling pretty good.
He don't know what he's doing, but his scheme, his patterns, his logic. I'm calling the offense. Are we going to go run
his overall feel for is I've been feeling really good about my predictions lately. Like that 2024 season, I made a lot of bold predictions that came to fruition. A lot. And I think Keely Ringo is going to be a player.
I do too. I agree.
And I think Kevin Patullo. I think Kevin Patullo is going to have a phenomenal season. I really think so. And I got another bold prediction for you.
Okay.
I think Kevin Patullo not only has a great season this season, I think Kevin Patullo stays on for another year.
I hope so.
Because I think because going from passing coordinator to offensive coordinator, they're going right like it just feels like a too fast of a jump. I think he would want to have some sustained success as an offensive coordinator before.
Can we get Jalen with the same OC at least 2 seasons in a row, please? At least maybe can we squeeze out 3?
Yeah.
Maybe. We don't have we don't need to say he got another offensive coordinator, because that's another feather in his cap too, and people don't bring that up enough either. Like, he's had a different offensive coordinator almost every year of his football career.
It's not easy to overcome. You want to know who can't overcome it? Justin Herbert.
Fact.
Justin Herbert has had 4 different OCs since being in the league. He came into the league and his first OC was Shane Steichen. And
that's when things start clicking.
Then he had Joe Lombardi. Then he had Kellen Moore.
We had Brian Johnson in there.
Then he had John, you might as well say Jim Harbaugh or is it John? I get them mixed up. Which one coaches the Ravens? That's John, right?
Yeah.
So Jim. Jim, you might as well say he's the OC for the Chargers. So he's a guy that hasn't really been able to overcome the changes at OC, but the changes have been something that I don't want to say, I'll say that's something he's encouraged, because the narrative has been they've been holding him back.
Right.
That's been the narrative. But isn't it funny how when Jim Harbaugh goes there, he says, yeah, we're going to throw the ball less.
Okay.
Now, does that mean he has lack of confidence in Justin Herbert? I don't think so. But for some reason, when the Eagles asked Jalen Hurts to throw the ball less, it signifies a lack of confidence in him.
It's a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
They moving the goalposts.
Jim Harbaugh came to the Chargers and said, yeah, we're throwing the ball less. The way you've been doing it is not working. So, I just think Jalen Hurts is, unfortunately, I hate using the word victim, but he has become almost the poster child for undeserved success. They want to use him as that example of somebody who hasn't really earned his success.
Right. And that's what it comes down to.
And I'm like, success is gauged off of the results. These organizations, these owners, these GMs, they're not cutting these checks to these quarterbacks, just so you can get your numbers, my guy. They're paying for wins. They're paying for you to win in the playoffs. They're paying for conference championship berths. They're paying for Super Bowl victories. They're not paying all these. They're not paying for your fantasy football conglomerate. They're not paying for that.
And who cares how you get there, man? Who cares how you get there? You go to your favorite ramen shop and you get your favorite pho, and you realize that ramen that they putting in that is the same ramen you get at ShopRite. They come from the same place, but they make it looks better. I know that was a reach, but you understand my point.
I knew what you meant, brother. I knew what you meant.
Don't make it complicated. And that's the thing. And we are just getting to a point as consumers of this type of media where they are finally understanding that the big shiny thing in the room doesn't always mean the best thing in the room.
It's funny you say that.
We're finally getting to that point.
I agree. That's why, when that Super Bowl was over, that's why I have respect for guys like Darren Orlovsky. Do I agree with Darren Orlovsky all the time? No. I don't agree with nobody all the time. But
he keeps it 100.
But you know what Dano said at that Super Bowl, he said, and I think Ryan Clark said it too. He said, "Yo, we got to change how we evaluate this player in particular. We got to change. We got to change how we got to change how we view this. We have to expand. Let's say that we got to expand how we view this player and the quarterback position in general.
Right.
Because you can't deny what Jalen Hurts has been able to do in the playoffs. You can't deny that. You can't.
They'll try.
And who he did it to, and under the circumstances. The Chiefs had the Eagles where they wanted them. No run game. Jalen Hurts is forcing third and long, second and long situation. You had him where you wanted him, and y'all couldn't stop him. He was inevitable.
You let him off the hook. You let him off the hook.
There's guys. This is not a beauty pageant. This is nothing. This is nothing of the sort. This is a man's game.
I would be curious to see. I know there's some websites that I could probably find, but I would be curious to see like the ratings and the viewership based on which quarterback was playing. Because that seems to be the viewership is what I guess determines the trail of who gets the most visibility, things of that nature. Because we'll see Justin Herbert, we'll see Joe Cool, we'll see Josh Allen, we'll see all these other quarterbacks time after time after time after time after time. So I'm curious as to see the like what the viewership is for Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and all of these other quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, all of them.
It's crazy you say that because if you listen to mass media, you would think that Jalen Hurts is one of the least popular guys in the NFL, or everybody thinks he's overrated, right?
Right.
But this guy, how can a guy who's been in the top 5 of jersey sales since 2022, how can a guy who's been in the top 5 of jersey sales on multiple occasions be a guy that's not liked or whatever it may be? Like, that's how I know it's a figment of it's a figment of the media's imagination. They're creating these narratives. Jalen Hurts is a very popular player.
Absolutely.
He's a very popular player. Kids like Jalen Hurts. These young guys, they like Jalen Hurts. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well,
he was popular in college.
It comes down to who's doing the most talking.
Mm-hmm.
And we still in the situation. We still in the era where the negative always is the negative is always louder. The negative is always louder. Negative publicity, conflict is always louder than peace.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, to your point, the guys on the radio arguing today. Like you arguing about a Super Bowl MVP winning quarterback.
Yeah. I didn't even hear it all, by the way. I only heard a 3-minute clip between Joe Gigolo and
I heard the snippet that everybody's talking about, but I still want to go back and get the context of the whole conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's and I've come to the point now where, like, listen, there's nothing that I can say right now that'll convince you otherwise. If you don't like Jalen Hurts, if you don't think he's top 5 in your list or whatever the conversation or the argument comes to, if you're not believing that, it is not my riddle to solve to convince you. I'm not going to do that. But what I can do is watch it play out.
Yeah.
And they look at you with the arched eyebrow like, what the hell were you thinking when it was sitting right in front of you the whole time? You just didn't want to believe it.
Yeah, the biggest question is, can I win with him? Can you win with this guy?
Right.
If you build the team around him, which is the goal for every organization, build the team around your quarterback. If you build the team around your quarterback, does your quarterback maximize that? Does he take advantage of that? Does he win with it? The Ravens just signed Jair Alexander today. They just signed Jair Alexander. That secondary now has Malachi Starks, Kyle Hamilton, Jair Alexander, Nate Higgins, and Marlon Humphrey. You can make an argument that's the most dynamic secondary in football.
Agreed.
Lamar Jackson has arguably the best tight end tandem in football with Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. You know, he has an ascending star receiver in Zay Flowers and a number 2 who had a career year in Rashad Bateman.
Still couldn't get it done.
Derrick Henry at running back.
Right. Still couldn't get it done.
The question is, when you build a team around your guy, can he get it done? Can he maximize the roster? If the question is yes, he's everything you want. He's everything you want him to be. If the question is no, or he never has, now you got to start looking at that quarterback. Jalen Hurts. I would be concerned if Jalen Hurts didn't maximize the talent. That's what I would be concerned, because they say he's carried, right? But my thing is,
never understood that.
You're saying he's carried, right? But he's maximizing the roster. He's doing what he's supposed to do when you got a roster like that. You get what I'm saying? Like, I would look at y'all fun. I would agree with y'all if they gave him those weapons and he did, and they constantly lost in the first round. They didn't make it to conference championships or didn't win the Super Bowl. I would be like, yo, this guy can't, like, no matter what you put around him, he can't do it. Like how we look at Josh Allen or how we look at Lamar Jackson or like, they got the talent. They're not getting it done. At least Jalen Hurts, when you making the investment, he's getting it done with the investment you made.
With the pieces you put on the field.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We've seen Dak Prescott play with Dez Bryant, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, a healthy Michael Gallup, Jason Witten, Schoonmaker, Ferguson, a healthy Cole Beasley when he was a slot merchant killing the game. And now he has George Pickens, and he's had defenses. And I'm looking at these. I'm looking at this like, yo, at what point do you look at him and say he can't get it done? Right. Whereas though my guy, whenever he has had the roster or had the team or had the defense, he's gotten it done. He's got you to the dance. There's something to be said about that. And they'll say he's not as talented as that, or not as talented as that guy or this guy or whatever it is. Come on, man. Come on. Okay. So what?
I'm looking at the stats, and I just wanted to see something real quick. When John Elway went back to back,
and those were at the end of his career, by the way. The end of his career.
That was 97 and 98, right? Look at the years before then. When did Elway? Because Elway was at the end when he won those two.
Yep.
So Terrell Davis pretty much carried the team. That team had the Orange Crush offensive line with Mark Schlereth.
Schlereth and all them. Yep.
Many of the same type of pieces. Was Shannon Sharp on one of those teams?
He was on
both of those teams.
Yeah.
So
Hall of Fame tight end, Hall of Fame running back.
How come they weren't carrying?
Because John Elway was a first round pick, for a first overall pick, and when you get that extra love. People think that it's supposed to be like that. You're supposed to. They're not going to say you got carried because you're the first overall pick. If Jalen Hurts was drafted top 10 overall and everything was the same,
right?
They wouldn't be saying shit.
No,
they would say, "Wow, you drafted this. What a way to maximize your top 10 overall pick. You got 2 Super Bowl appearances, a Super Bowl win, All-Pro, Pro Bowl. Like he's been in the MVP conversation since 2022 on different occasions. Like if Jalen Hurts was a first round pick, he would not get talked about the way he's talked about. Because you know what they would say? They would say, hey, the results are the results, though.
The expectations would be higher. Absolutely.
The results are the results.
Absolutely.
You drafted this guy in the first round, he got you 2 Super Bowl berths and 1 Super Bowl win. So far, so good, and making good on that investment, right? You paid him? Oh, but because he's a second round pick, because he got benched in college, because he doesn't play the game the way you like it to be played, there's something off about him.
And I guess that'll always be the case because everybody wants that shiny thing in the box. I'm very interested to see what Cleveland does with Shador. Because just as an example, everything that I've heard about what's going on up there, he's had the best camp.
Yeah.
But because they decided to, somebody told him to draft the kid, he's got to be relegated to fifth round duty when he's playing above that. It's quite clear that he's playing above that.
I don't like when public relations and politics start to make an impact on football decisions.
Yeah.
Now I know it's never going to go away because
it's not.
Because I was the one that said the Giants should draft. Who was it? I think I said the Giants should draft.
The Giants are going to regret not getting
the corner. Oh, the corner. Jeez, why am I forgetting this dude's name? Went to the Jags. I'm blanking for some reason.
Oh, Travis
Hunter.
Travis Hunter.
I was on the record saying they should draft Travis Hunter for this reason. You got Malik Neighbors. You signed Russell Wilson. You bring in Travis Hunter with that. A guy that can play both sides of the ball in New York. That market. You got a young running back you like in Tyrone Tracy. And you're still trying to recover from the Saquon debacle. And Dane Jones debacle. The best
and still ain't solidified their offensive line.
It still ain't solidified your offensive line. But the best way to shift the narrative PR wise is what it would have been to draft Travis Hunter. Me personally, because he affects both sides of the ball. He'll be box office. People will come to see him.
Facts.
It's a quick way to make you forget about Saquon and Dane Jones. You got Russell Wilson, a guy who has playoff experience, who had a good season last year, in my opinion.
Russell's gonna be running for his life back there, man, because they still didn't get an offensive line.
I don't think I believe Abdul Carter was the wrong pick, not because he's not a good player, but because I felt like that you brought in Brian Burns, you still got Kayvon Thibodeau on the rookie deal. I just felt like Abdul Carter. All that told me was they're not as high on Kayvon Thibodeau as I thought, and also, I don't know, man.
Wasn't he hurt a lot last year?
It wasn't that bad. Because I've heard somebody say that, and it really wasn't as bad as this is what I think. Let me double check that though. Kayvon Thibodeau. Okay, Kayvon Thibodeau. He missed 5 games last year. Played in 12 games, missed 5. In 2023, played in all 17 games. 2022, played in 14 games. But in 2023, had a career year, 11.5 sacks, and in 2024. He had 5.5 sacks through 12 games. So he's been a decent player, but he hasn't really lived up to that top 5 overall pick billing. And, they're bringing up Abdul Carter. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes for sure, because you got Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, and Kayvon Thibodeau. That's a hell of a trio. So that rotation is going to be real fun to watch. But the bottom line is, though, like, PR and all those moves, like politics, think they're going to play a role in the game in some shit, way, or form. I just love that doesn't really affect the Philadelphia Eagles in terms of how they make moves, right?
Now we got our own formula, and it works.
Yeah, trading Carson Wentz was a PR nightmare, wasn't it? But they overcame that.
Man, that lets you, if anything, that should let you know that maybe them dudes in that office know a little bit more than we do. Maybe they know a little bit more of what's going on than we do. We on the outside looking in. So,
and I also hate how it's portrayed on national media that there is a dysfunction that the Eagles overcome.
Yeah, I'm so sick of hearing that. Every time nobody knows the answer, here come Mr. Sources again, and
dysfunction.
They seem to know everything.
Right. Like the Eagles don't get as far as they get by being this. You don't get that far. You don't win the. You can't do it being dysfunctional. You can't.
Right.
You can't. Now, I'd rather you just say, "Hey, that culture is unique over there. I don't really understand it. I'm used to looking at the game this way, but they debunk everything that I'm used to seeing from the game." I can respect that. I can respect that perspective. You know what I'm saying? I can respect that because at least you're acknowledging, hey, whatever's going on over there, it's not something I understand, but it works for them.
But that'll never happen because, again, everybody want to be right.
Yeah.
Everybody want to be right. So, Fangirl, where you from in Ohio?
Fanny's from Dayton.
Okay.
I think
a little bit of
Fanny's from
stomping ground. I'm a Cincinnati boy.
Yeah, my in-laws are from Dayton.
Yeah, man. Fanny, send me some Skyline chili. Hook me up. I need it. I miss it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get on Amazon tonight and order me some. Dayton, Ohio. Yeah. One of my I used to go hang out with one of my frat brothers up in Dayton, and we used to go to UD, go party up there. Yeah, Dayton was like 45 minutes outside of Cincinnati, so that was a short trip.
Yeah, so, like Dayton is interesting. Like I feel like every time I go to Dayton, I time travel a little bit. I've been there enough to solidify the feeling. I feel like I time travel a little bit, like visiting Dayton, just a little bit. Shout out to Dayton, man. I got family in Dayton. Got a lot of love for Dayton, man. But you know, do you want to play the clip? That short clip from WIP, man. It was.
Let me see. I had it earlier, and then I lost it. Let me see if it's on.
I could pull it up right here. All you gotta do is just bring it up.
It should be on WIP's Twitter feed. They've been playing it all day. That's where I saw it earlier.
Yeah. You know, it was fascinating to me. It was really fascinating to me, and I really admire how ESP stood on business. I really there it go right there.
Yep.
I really respect how he stood on business, man. I really do. And like I said, I don't agree with everything ESP says. Like, you know, he has his own perspective of how he looks at the game, which is fine. But he don't.
I mean, I was in the car yesterday, so I heard you.
All right, hold up. Let me see.
I'm ready to meet you, big dog. You know,
I'm trying to see if I can cover the picture so they don't try to get me. But
okay,
it should be okay.
Yeah, you should be okay because of your graphics are surrounding it. We're talking. We're so.
Here we go. Let's just play the clip.
Yeah, just play the clip because I don't want to.
But I just want you to take us through your thinking.
Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
How?
Oh, I can't hear it anymore because you scored too far down.
Is he above Saquon Barkley? Like he's just not as good of a player.
So I'm not watching the YouTube right now. Do you have your doctor's coat on again?
I do not today.
To diagnose me, because I actually think in some ways you're the one that needs a diagnosing and has the amnesia.
Well, I was called quack yesterday.
I mean, do you remember the Super Bowl? Like it did happen.
Very
right?
well. Do you remember weeks? I don't know, the 6, 7, 5, 3, when the 1 through 4. Okay.
1 through 4.
But you know what? Where have we gotten to as a media and as a media base and a fan base where we are prioritizing weeks 6, 7, 3, whatever, as
absolutely
we're prioritizing the Super Bowl? For as long as I have been in Philadelphia, there are 2 things that have mattered more than anything else.
Yep.
1, the quarterback of the Eagles, and 2, the postseason. And if you want to say where exactly,
damn it,
it's okay.
My bad.
Ask Joel how much the postseason means, because Joel has been an extremely dominant regular season.
You got to bring up JoJo.
He bringing up a good point.
You would say his career is remembered for losing in the postseason. Yes. So the hypocrisy for you to now prioritize the regular season over what Jalen did in the postseason goes against everything we've ever done in this city.
So it's not hypocrisry because
it is hypocrisy.
You just brought up week 6 and 7 when I said he won the Super Bowl.
Well, how about this? How about week 19 or whatever the heck the divisional round was? Elliot, we're acting as if every playoff game was dominant. He was.
I love this part.
To the reason they got knocked out by the Rams. He took 7 sacks, a safety included in that, and a sack to take him out of field goal range. That happened 2 weeks before the Super Bowl.
You're right.
So when we say postseason, we're lumping everything in.
Some people ain't never happy.
In the Rams game. I think we all know.
No, watch what ESP says.
The biggest reason they were not going to move on if not for Jalen Carter's sack. So I can't just pretend it's all great when the postseason was just like the regular season. He has ups and downs.
Nobody's asking you to pretend. No one's asking you to forget the regular season. No one's asking you to forget the Rams game. I think what I'm asking of you is, if I put my doctor coat on, is to correctly prioritize what the different things are. You're right. They almost lost to the Rams.
Yes.
Welcome to every postseason run ever by a champion, right?
Thank you.
In 2017, Nick Foles wasn't great against the Falcons. Guess what? We never talk about that Falcons.
Never.
We talk about Nick. We bring up the championship game and the Super Bowl. I hear nobody ever bring up, well, he wasn't great against the Falcons.
Facts.
So you're right. Jalen was not great against the Rams. He's not. He was not. But when the two most important games of the year were played, the two most important games, like by a mile, he was unbelievable in those two games. So I will give you and acknowledge that, yes, there were stretches where he was not
Smash
good.
that like button, y'all.
Now, a true football man can prioritize those over the postseason.
He's right. He's right.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
Since when did regular season games have priority over playoff games?
Never.
Right? And two, since when we can nitpick every Super Bowl run ever in history and say, hey, this is a moment where they could have lost that game. If it wasn't, if this person didn't make this play, they don't go on this run. You can nitpick every single Super Bowl champion's run and say, hey, they
almost lost.
They almost lost this one. They almost lost that one. Nick Foles, he nailed it. The Atlanta Falcons game. We don't talk about the Falcons game. We don't.
Yeah, but why would who cares that we almost lost?
Who cares?
You would be more upset if we almost won like it was in 22. We almost won. Damn.
It's the NFL. It's the playoffs.
Those teams punt return. Damn, Jalen, if you didn't fumble before the half, we almost won. We should almost had that one. And then we get back and win it. And winning, we dominate.
Right.
And
yeah.
What did we just say? Everybody's looking for something. Nobody wants to be wrong.
Yo, I'm so glad Sweet Chimney is important to say. He said the Chiefs only won their Super Bowls by 3 points.
Correct.
Does their Super Bowls have less value because they didn't win by a gargantuan amount? Like, just say you don't like the player. Just say you don't like him, and then we can know how to receive you.
Correct.
Because you can't stop feigning analysis. Oh, I'm sorry. Stop feigning. Stop feigning analysis for disrespect. You're trying to convince us that you're just being objective, but in reality, you don't like the player. You don't like him for whatever reason. Because
you want somebody else, or you want that quarterback to check off all the boxes. He's got to throw for 4,500 yards. He's got to have 30 touchdowns. He's got to have less than 10 interceptions. He's got to check all of those boxes.
Right.
In my opinion, the biggest problem that people in Philadelphia have had with Jalen Hurts is because he doesn't win by throwing the ball all over the field, and you got some of those people who only want to talk about quarterbacks who can do that, even if those quarterbacks have never won. They don't want to be wrong. So they keep moving the goalposts and they keep giving you excuses, but it's this, but it's that. And you heard it right there. Not in the history of ever have we worried about the regular season like he just
in Philly especially. You want to know how I know? Because I've seen Donovan McNabb go to 4 NFC championships.
Right.
And only turn that into one Super Bowl berth. We're a city where close is not enough. We're that city where almost doesn't cut it. We're that city. We're the city that looks at Joel Embiid and say, hey, I don't care about your MVP. I don't care about what you do in the regular season. Get out of the second round. We're that city. So we got a quarterback that maximizes the talent around them, a quarterback that gets the 2 Super Bowls, wins one of them, is an all-pro, a Pro Bowler, a Burt Bell Award winner, a Super Bowl MVP. He's the reason you won the Super Bowl along with the defense doing their job. He's the reason you won the Super Bowl. He's the reason you were able to blow out that team. Again, the defense did their job, but the offense got to score. That's the guy we're disrespecting here. That's the guy whose playoff success doesn't matter. That's the guy whose game we're nitpicking. When he actually got it done, when he got the opportunities to get there.
They just need to say, and I think you mentioned this earlier, they just need to say that they don't like him.
And how many times were the Eagles the favorites in those NFC Championship games? Every single time, right?
I think so.
They were the favorites against the Buccaneers. They were the favorites against the Falcons. I'm taking it back now. Because remember, we played the Falcons in the NFC Championship when Michael Vick was there. They was the favorites against the Falcons. They was the favorites against the Buccaneers. Who else did we play in NFC Championship games before? Who else? All my OG Eagles fans in the live chat. Were the Eagles the favorites against all those teams we played in the NFC? The Panthers, we were the favorites against them. Those are the Donovan McNabb teams. Because people like to say Donovan McNabb or the Eagles didn't get Donovan McNabb weapons. Okay, we're judging it by today's standard of weapons versus that era, right? And I'm not saying James Thrash is a threat. I'm not saying that, no disrespect. But what the point I'm trying to make is the Eagles were dominant football teams. Were a dominant football team at that time. Dominant. Regardless of how you want to nitpick and compare the rosters, for that era, for that window in time, they were the bullies on the block.
They were.
Regardless of what weapons he had or didn't have. They were the bullies. And they were the favorites in every single NFC Championship game.
And couldn't get it done.
And Donovan McNabb is 1-3 in NFC Championship games. But you want me to look at Jalen Hurts and criticize his game because he got it done when he was supposed to get it done.
Everybody wanted to be pretty.
He got 2 cracks at it, Marcus, and he won one of them, and he should have won the first one.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Since when were we a city that prioritizes regular season over playoffs? Since when? This ain't the Tennessee Titans. We're not the Jacksonville Jaguars. We ain't just happy to make it to we're not happy just to be invited to the party. We trying to crash that motherfucker.
And you look at all of them quarterbacks, man, that had all of the hype, they supposed to be a better team. They was throwing the peel all over the field. They had all of that extra going in their way, but ultimately could not get it done. Period.
Let me make sure I got this right here.
You know, it goes back to my policy on lists and all that type of stuff. Whoever you want to put on there, put on there. I don't care. Meanwhile, while we shining our rings, holler at me when we done. Wear sunglasses because the bling is bright.
I want to make sure I got this right. So,
Jake Delhomme, Marcus,
bro, like seriously, I really want to make sure I got this right. So, Eagles lost to St. Louis in an NFC Championship in 2002. Lost to Tampa Bay in the NFC Championship.
That was the Gruden year, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's when Gruden schooled them because we smoked. I remember that year. We smoked Tampa Bay earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
And they came back in that playoff game, and it was in the snow, I believe. It was in. I think that game. It was a cold game, and we put it on them. Or no, I'm sorry, they put it on us. John Gruden. That's when John Gruden became John Gruden.
Yep. Lost to Carolina, and need I remind you, in the 2002-2003 season and the 2003-2004 season, the Eagles were the number one seed. Number one seed back-to-back season. You lose an NFC Championship.
Yep.
You only generated 13 points between those two games. Against Carolina and Tampa Bay. You've only generated 13 points combined. Come on, dog. Come on, yo. But they want me to look at Jalen Hurts as somebody as less than. Please. What have you done for me? Please. I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that, man. And then you lose to the Arizona Cardinals. You were favorites against them. Come on, man.
Couldn't get it done.
I'm not.
And now they moving the goalposts. And it's just like, man, shut up. Enjoy the ride. And let's get ready for the next year. Period. I don't want to hear nothing about I'm so sick of lists. So just, whoever you want is whoever you want. But come see me when we play Dallas and we hang that banner up.
Yep.
And all the guys on the team get that Tiffany box.
Yeah, like
that's what it's about, man.
Jalen Hurts has become one of the most polarizing players in Eagles sports and in Philly sports, and all he does is win football games.
And let me be honest with you, I don't think it's that big. I think because the negative stuff is the loudest, it seems like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that it's 50-50 on Jalen Hurts. Far from it.
No, I don't think so either, to be honest with you. But I get peeved when I see blatant trolling, like blatant disrespect.
Yep.
I get peeved because I question who's signing off on this.
Correct.
I question your football acumen. I don't care how much I'm trolling. I can't just ignore. You know what I mean? I can't just ignore what's obvious.
Man, people funny, man.
Can't ignore what's obvious.
Like, hey, man, Joe Giglio, if you're gonna be mad by yourself, bro. Because we got business to take care of this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we go back again, as long as we stay healthy, and as long as number one is at the helm, we good.
Simple as that. And guess what? Here's the thing, right? I don't care what Jalen Hurts does. If winning happens because he's there, what difference does it make?
What difference does it make?
If winning happens because he's there, what difference does it make? If Jalen Hurts goes down as being one of the greatest quarterbacks in Eagles history, which I think he's well on his way there, if he goes down as being one of the greatest, and you look at the resume and you look at the stats, you look at the accolades and what he's been able to do, and I see, okay, I don't see Drew Brees passing numbers, or I don't see Aaron Rodgers passing numbers, or Mahomes, but I see 3 Super Bowl wins. I see a handful of Pro Bowls, a few All Pros, like a few Super Bowl MVPs. Like if I see that, he's the greatest to me.
Period.
He's the greatest. He's the greatest quarterback in Eagles history. Nitpick his talent. When he was the quarterback, did we win more than we lost?
Did we win or not? That's it. In a nutshell.
Did we win more than we lost?
Period. End of paragraph. Full stop.
Did he maximize the opportunities he was given? Can I look at his career and say it wasn't a dud? Because so far, I don't care what Dak Prescott does. I look at his career from a football perspective, not from a financial perspective, because he's eating very well. But from a football perspective, from a results perspective, it's a dud.
They know that.
It's a dud.
They know that. Because all we doing is throwing up in their face everything they threw in our face for all of them years through the 90s and 2000s and 2010s and all of that type of stuff. Because they was the buzzsaw back then.
Mm-hmm.
They was whooping ass and taking names. And we was in line like everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, everybody gets a turn. And now it's our turn.
Yep. Yeah. I just don't like the selective memory.
Yeah, selective amnesia.
And when people are called out blatantly for their bias, they want to play dumb. That's why I love the point ESP made about the Nick Foles Atlanta game. Because when we talk about Nick Foles and that extravagant run, we don't talk about that game. We don't. He wasn't great in that game. Now, Doug and those guys that came out of halftime and completely shifted the way they was passing the ball. That's when the RPO game really got brought to the forefront.
Right.
It was at the halftime. They said, okay, this is how we're going to move the ball. Because he wasn't playing well in that first half. He was very up and down, very inconsistent. We only talk about 2 games on that run. And let's be honest about this. If we ain't had a number 1 seed, I don't think we win it. I don't think we make it. Because he didn't have to travel, except for going to the Super Bowl, had all home games, and he only had to win 3 games. Jalen Hurts had to win 4.
Right.
And was the number 2 seed. It was this close to going on the road to Detroit, but Detroit fumbled the bag. So it's like, yeah, in sports, you get breaks. It comes with it. As long as you do what you're supposed to do and take advantage of the breaks.
Right.
That's the name of the game. You know, there's a smidge of luck involved in winning a Super Bowl. There's a smidge of luck, a smidge of opportunity versus preparation.
And you got to make the most of those opportunities.
And you got to make the most of it. And I think Jalen Hurts and the Eagles made the most of their opportunities.
Absolutely.
Simple as that. Absolutely. That. You know? And what we don't talk about in that Rams game is, although Jalen Hurts did have his struggles, he completed over 70% of his passes. And let's not pretend A.J. Brown didn't drop an easy touchdown. Let me not say easy.
He dropped a touchdown.
His job is not easy.
He dropped a touchdown.
He dropped a touchdown that was in his hand. Jalen Hurts threw the perfect back shoulder. He dropped it. It was like a 30, 40-yard bomb. He dropped it. Like, Jalen Hurts wasn't afraid to throw. Jalen Hurts took off a 40-yard touchdown, first drive or second drive, whatever it was, 40-yard touchdown.
Right.
Like, you know, Jalen Hurts was accurate in that game. The numbers dictate that. He was accurate. But the snow started coming down, things of that nature. Like it was, we should have smoked them, honestly, because Coop dropped the interception. AJ dropped Isaiah Rodgers dropped the interception.
The first
AJ Brown dropped the touchdown. I think Devontae dropped the ball too.
Coop, Quinyon, and
Isaiah Rodgers, they had interceptions, but they dropped. Well, Isaiah Rodgers, he had it, but the ball got taken out of his hand.
Isaiah Rodgers dropped 2, if I remember right.
I think Quinyon got hurt, so
let's bounce these super chats, and I gotta get up out of here, man.
Slade dropped one. That's who it was.
Fanny Eagles.
Yeah, shout out to Fanny.
Okay, when we talking about Hurts, they always bring up Alabama and getting benched.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
And forget that he was the runner for the Heisman when he was with Oklahoma. He took his passing prowess to a whole nother level. It was night and day. His passing prowess, night and day.
Alex is asking, is Baltimore a super team after signing Jair? No.
Yep. No, I'm gonna say they are because all of a sudden the Eagles became a super team after we won it all. I'm saying Baltimore is. They ain't got no excuse.
The only reason I'm not saying that is because the conversation we had about Jair Alexander.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
he has not proven he can stay on the field for a long period of time.
And Marlon Humphrey has battled injuries too.
So we'll see. Let that play itself out.
We definitely will see. That's a good point by you, though. I forgot about that. That's a good point.
Interesting stat. Mahomes' 2 best years, his yards came from 50% yak yards. Now Jalen's highest season was 47%. Imagine him getting 50 yak, what his yards would look like. Yeah, absolutely.
Those 2 best years, Tyreek Hill was there. You know what I mean? Like
Peter, yep. That makes a difference.
It's not an accident. Now, granted, Patrick Mahomes is so great, so talented. He overcame not having that. He had Andy Reid as the head coach who can coach around that. But we're not gonna pretend like Patrick Mahomes ain't had great rosters.
Nah,
he's had great rosters. Just because you don't know the player, that don't mean that's not a great roster.
He had the good squad and he was a good player, but he just came up against somebody better.
Yeah, better than
everybody. Everybody in the media was drinking that Kool-Aid. Y'all go ahead and sip away.
Yeah. And because he's Patrick Mahomes, they ignored the flaws of that team all year long.
Correct.
All it take for somebody to expose it. That's all.
Yeah, I want to see the results of that documentary they shot.
They came out. I think it's on ESPN, right?
Is it?
Yeah, it came out. I think.
I'll watch 2/3 of it. The last third, I don't want to watch it.
I'm always rewatching the
stupid ass
the Eagles stuff, man.
No, like it's all so bad. They filming the damn documentary and they ain't even won shit yet. You talk about the ultimate karma.
Yeah, the league wanted that to happen really bad.
Yeah, I know they did. But there's some third world country somewhere with a whole bunch of T-shirts that say the Chiefs were Super Bowl champions. Out of here, man.
Oh man.
All right, I gotta go, man. They pissed me off.
Let's cut it, man. We've been on here for an hour and a half. We got a lot of Jalen Hurts steam off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we did, and it's always warranted.
Yeah, it is always warranted. Like every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in because I don't want to keep having these conversations. I try my best to ignore them.
Yeah,
but they get more and more creative with their disrespect.
It is what it is.
Yes, sir.
So we almost at camp. About another month, and we're gonna be getting there and getting it in hot and heavy. And all of this furor is gonna start again.
Yep.
So I can't
smash
wait.
That like button, y'all. Y'all know what to do. Smash that like button before you get out of here. Smash that like button.
I can't wait for this, man. This summer's gonna go fast, and it's gonna be August is gonna be here in a minute, and it's gonna be crazy. Can't wait. Can't wait.
Yes, sir.
Can't
wait. Sir. Y'all know the vibes, man. This has been your Eagles Offseason Show featuring Coach Markus from Pro Fan Talk and yours truly, Tone DeShields II from Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge us to the game. Smash the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channels, both channels at that. Continue to support the content, especially if you're watching this on the playback. Sometimes you can't catch it live. I understand that. Make sure you guys double back. The content is always available for you on Pro Fan Talk and on Chalk It Up Sports. All you got to do is take advantage of your free access, and it's straight like that.
Yes,
Marcus,
sir.
kick that song, man. We out of here.
Go Birds.
In the city of Philly, where the birds take flight, Eagle swag on the rise each and every night. Tone and Markus got the scoop ready to ignite. From the lanes of South Street to the broad street lights, dashing like a running back, hitting every play. Blind guys in the zone, never led astray. Talking touchdowns, talking game day. Huddle around the mic, hear what they gotta say. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Markus always standing by, bringing the heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, get a bag.